Alright, Jammer here with a review of Sound Shapes for PS3 and Vita, and let me start out by saying that Sound Shapes is my kind of game. I love 2D platformers, I love electronic music, and Sound Shapes is a 2D platformer built around electronic music. Is it for everyone though? Well, probably not, and I'll get into that, but first I should explain a little bit more about the game. Sound Shapes is a simple platformer in which rooms and stages are built around collectibles that influence the game's music. And this is achieved by dividing each room into a 16 by 8 step sequencer, in which sounds and samples are played step by step from left to right, and the vertical position of each sound determines that pitch or which sample gets played at that particular time. So by moving the little ball character around and collecting samples, more and more of the song gets filled in during play. It's a nice idea and one that works fairly well, especially thanks to contributions by I Am Robot and Proud, Jim Guthrie, Deadmau5, and Beck. Add to this a very clean, high-definition yet 8-bit graphical style that is distinct for each musical composer, and you end up with a very appealing game. I was particularly impressed by the music from I Am Robot and Proud, who I hadn't heard of, though Cuteness had, but I've since listened to more of his music and I've really enjoyed it. As for the gameplay itself, the player controls a little ball reminiscent of Samus's Morph Ball with the Spring Ball and Spider Ball power-ups in Metroid 2. However, much of the game is more of a run and jump sort of platformer, though the character's ability to latch onto and roll around ledges is used in many parts of the game. By default, the ball sticks to lightly colored surfaces and can be made to roll around walls when necessary. Pressing X causes the ball to jump, and pressing the square or R1 causes it to lose its stickiness, but gain a bit of speed. Black surfaces generally cannot be stuck to, and red surfaces are lethal, and that's about it really. You roll, jump, stick, collect samples, add to the song, avoid enemies, and traverse obstacles, which often lend music to the stage's songs, and get to the end of the stage, a record player. Failure can be pretty common, but checkpoints are also common. The stages themselves are fairly varied between composers as well. Some stages are more exploratory, others more about solving puzzles, and still others are more of challenging platformers. I should note that despite its musical integration, such that enemies and obstacles move to the beat of the song, as do the samples, of course, I wouldn't call it a rhythm game as much. Some rooms it helps to have a bit of rhythm, but it isn't a must when playing the game. Also, while the gameplay is usually simple, there are some fun, if very rare, conditions where the gameplay is altered extensively. I only have a couple complaints about the game. One to do with gameplay, and one to do with value. For gameplay, player death or movement to the next room can cause a pause in the loop or an awkward restart of the loop, and this really breaks the flow of the music, something that you really don't want in a game like this. I guess you could call it a punishment to have the musical flow get broken by a death, but I really think the loop should remain constant. As for the value, well, Sound Shapes is more on the expensive side among downloadable titles at $14.99. And while the concept and execution is for the most part exceptional, there really isn't that much content in the initial package to justify the asking price. Case in point, the worlds are listed as albums, but they're generally only 2 to 4 levels per album, numbers more reminiscent of an EP than an album. And in total there are only around 20 levels, each lasting for me between 4 to 6 minutes, and upon replay much shorter than that. And don't get me wrong, some stages have some really impressive moments, but there just aren't many stages for such a simple setup. One redeeming feature that does add a bit of value to the game is the level creation mode. I would have preferred that the included levels be numerous and robust enough to make a fantastic title rather than depend on the community for levels, but the level editor is pretty impressive, and I have played a few levels from the community which were pretty fun. So depending on whether or not the community supports this game, it may end up being an incredible value. I also find step sequencer based music composing pretty fun, and I think there are enough samples included in the game to make the music part of the level editor engaging for a little while. It also has some impressive features such as being able to change the beats per minute of the song, and I mean, building levels around music rather than music being made to fit a game is a nice change of pace. Adding obstacles to stages is also intuitive if a tad clunky when it comes to removing objects. I mean, I'm conflicted, honestly. This is my kind of game, but the package itself doesn't offer as much as I would like, which is kind of a compliment. I feel many players could smash through the game really quickly and be left kind of unimpressed, but the music itself is really good, but I think that the artist's music outside of the game is likely better than the in-game music, even though the in-game music is really good. The community may support the game enough to make it a great value for everyone, but the initial package may not be worth it for those who don't love platformers or electronic music. Well, have a good one.